Okay. So limiting factor is any item or any resource which is in limited quantity, which basically, and why is it called a limiting factor? Because it limits you from reaching your full possible potential. For example, in my case, I could say time is a limiting factor. I want to teach all the 15 batches all the time, 15 subjects all the time, but that is not possible because I have only a limited amount of time. I have a limited amount of time, so then my time should be focused towards those batches which give me the highest revenue or the highest profit per hour spent. Say there is a batch which is an advanced batch which gives me 20,000 rupees per student, for example. Then that is giving me the highest revenue per hour spent, and naturally, they would expect me to take more of that subject, which gives me a higher revenue per hour spent. So there could be multiple factors which could be, in limited quantity. Sometimes the initial couple of questions we'll have one resource in limited quantity. Then we'll evaluate situations where we have many resources which are limited. So time is also limited, material availability is also limited, machine time limited, everything limited. Okay. And firms face many constraints, and those could be, the labor time could be limited, the machine time, as I said, could be limited. And our analysis right now is going to focus on first one limiting factor and then later on multiple limiting factors. How does the discussion of one limiting factor go? First of all, we the same thing that we did in the previous question on throughput accounting and theory of constraints. Identify the scarce resource, calculate the contribution per unit of each product, calculate the contribution per unit of the scarce resource. What we did in that product A, product B wala example, contribution per unit, contribution per hour, same approach, and then resources have to be allocated. The first question is a classic example of how a question on limiting factors can be asked. Indicate the production levels that should be adopted for the three products in order to maximize the profitability and state the maximum contribution. Okay, have a look at the question on your screen. X Limited makes three products A, B, and C, for which unit cost, machine hour, and selling prices are as follows. Machine hours for product A are 10, B are 12, C are 14. And then they have given you information in dollar. Direct material at 50 cents per kg. 7 is the cost, 14 is the kg. $6 is the cost, 12 kg is the quantity of direct material required. And for product C, the cost is $5 and the quantity is 10 kg. Now the direct wages have been calculated at 7.5 per hour, that is the rate per hour. For product A, you are spending 1.2 hours and incurring a cost of 9. For product B, you are spending 0.8 hours and incurring a cost of 6. For product C, you are spending 0.4 hours and incurring a cost of 3. 0.4 into $7.5 per hour. Then you have your variable overheads and you have the marginal cost. Selling price is given to you. Contribution per unit is also given. You don't have to calculate. Okay, it's not a tough calculation anyway. Sale demand for the product is limited as follows. Product A, you can sell 4,000. Product B, you can sell 6,000 units. Product C, you can sell another 6,000 units. Company policy is to produce a minimum of 1,000 units of product A. This is a special instruction. Minimum 1,000 units of product A have to be produced because maybe you have taken an order from someone, so you have to fulfill that order. Maybe, we don't know. The supply of material in the period is unlimited, but machine hours are limited to 2 lakh and direct labor hours are limited to 5,000. The question here is you should identify They have not told you which is the limiting factor or which resource is scarce. They have told you that machine hours are 2 lakh and direct labor hours are 5,000. A limiting factor is something which is in limited quantity. It is something which prevents you from reaching your full potential. Okay. It is something which prevents you from reaching your full potential. So, total. Now, in this question, the limiting factor has not been given directly. So, we'll have to identify the limiting factor. Okay, material is unlimited. So clearly, material cannot be the limiting factor. Now, if we were to make the maximum possible units of each product, how many machine hours would be required? ठीक है, maximum possible units अगर if we make, how many hours will be required? So product A will be 4,000 units into 10 machine hours per unit. 4,000 into 10 machine hours. Then product B कितना होगा? Maximum possible demand is 6,000. Hours are 12. 6,000 into 12 plus product C. How much? Maximum demand is 6,000 and machine hours per unit are 14. So 6,000 into 14. 6,000 into 14. 4,000 into 10 plus 6,000 into 12 plus 6,000 into 14. 1,96,000 hours. ठीक है. If we were to make maximum possible units of each product, how many machine hours would be required? 1,96,000 hours. And if we were to make the maximum possible units of each product, how many labor hours would be required? Okay, labor hours available are 5,000 and 1.2, 0.8, 0.4. 1.2, 0.8 and 0.4. ठीक है, 4, sorry. Plus 6,000 into 0.8 plus 6,000 into 0.4. ठीक है. If we were to make the maximum possible units of each product, then the labor hours required would be 12,000. Now we'll have to check which is the limiting factor. Okay, so let's write down the resource. Let's write down the time required to make maximum quantity, and let's talk about the time available. As you can see, we'll have to write down the two resources which are available. Which are the two resources? One is your machine hours and the other one is your labor hours. Now, if you observe, time required to make maximum quantity, maximum machine hours that you will need is to make the maximum possible quantity, 1,96,000. What is the time available? 2 lakh. And if you wanted to make the maximum possible output, how many labor hours would you need? You would need 12,000 labor hours. Time available is 5,000. Now you tell me which resource is in limited proportions. Very clearly, labor hours are in limited proportion. So I will say that labor hours are my limiting factor. ठीक है. Labor hours available are only 5,000 when requirement is 12,000. So labor hours are in limited proportion. Okay. Now let's start mapping other things now. We know labor hours are limited. So what we should do is we should put the contribution per unit, and after the contribution per unit, which by the way is directly given to you, you should calculate the contribution per labor hour, and then you should rank the items. Now don't spend time in writing the whole material, labor, selling price. Don't do that. They have given you contribution. So let's start with that point. Contribution statement and analysis. A, B, and C. So contribution per unit 6, 5, and 4. And what is the requirement of labor hour per unit? Why labor hour? Because labor hour is my limiting factor. Labor hour per unit 1.2, 0.8, 0.4. 1.2, 0.8, 0.4. So contribution per labor hour A upon B. Now let's rank them. See, if you would have gone by the contribution per unit, you would have said, let's produce A. But when you did a slightly deeper analysis, you realize that labor hours are limited. So whatever production you do should be keeping in mind the fact that labor hours are limited. So I should try to achieve the maximum contribution per labor hour spent. And in that race, product C1, this gets rank 1, this gets rank 2, this gets rank 3. In fact, this is the exact opposite sequence of what you would have otherwise calculated if you would have gone with contribution per unit. So now you have the ranking. Let's now make the production schedule. Production schedule. Here I will write down product. I will write down quantity, then labor hour per unit, then total labor hours and time left. ठीक है. 1 second, guys. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So, as per the ranking, product C gives me the highest contribution per labor hour. So let's start with making product C. What is the maximum possible demand for product C? 6,000 units. Quantity is 6,000 units. Labor hour per unit 0.4. Total labor hours 2400. What is time left? Total labor hours available were 5000. ठीक है, so 5000 minus 2400, 2600. Now product C is made. Now you think about product B. What is the maximum quantity you can make? 6000. Labor hours per unit 0.8. Total labor hours 4800. Now, very clearly, I don't think we have the ability to go any further. Now, there is one more catch here that we have not really paid attention to. What is that catch? See, in this case, we started making the schedule, but we ignored one instruction. What was that instruction? Company policy is to produce a minimum of 1000 units of product A. So although the ranking is CBA, we still have to make 1000 units of product A, and each unit consumes 1.2 hours of your time. So company has to make a minimum 1000 units of product A, although its ranking is the lowest. So we should include 1000 units of product A in the schedule first. Okay. C, although C gives me the highest contribution per labor hour, I will still have to include product A due to special instruction. Okay. What is the quantity? 1000 units is the quantity. How many labor hours do I need? I need 1.2 labor hours. Total labor hours are 1000 into 1.2, that is 1200. What is your time left? Time left is you had 5000 hours. So you are left with 5000 minus 1200, that is 3800 hours. Okay, now you should go ahead with product C, which is as per ranking. Maximum possible demand is 6000. To make one unit, you need 0.4 hours. So to make 6000 units, you will need 2400. 3800 minus 2400, you are left with 1400 hours. We have 1400 hours left. Maximum possible units of B that can be made are that can be or that are demanded are 6000. But if we make 6000 units, the labor hours required will be 6000 into 0.80, that is 4800. So maximum possible units cannot be made. Okay. If you make maximum possible, you need 4800. You don't have that much time. You only have 1400 hours. Okay. So how many units are possible in 1400 hours? 1400 upon 0.80, which is how much? 1750. Product B, balance 1750, 0.8, and you have utilized all the possible time. The reason why this question was different is because it had a special instruction which is usually not there. In this case, they told you that we don't care what is the ranking, but we need 1000 units of product A. So you had to focus on making that first. Then you had to go as per ranking. Then whatever time was left after that would go into product B, which is the which ideally should not have been this way, but there is special instruction, so you have to follow the special instruction. So you got the optimum production schedule in order to maximize profitability and state the maximum contribution. So maximum contribution is 1000 into 1000 units of A into 6 per unit plus how many? 1750 units of B into 5 per unit and how much? 6000 units of C into 6000 units of C into 4 per unit. Sorry, yeah, 4 per unit. So 1000 into 6 plus 6000 into 4 plus 1750 into 5, 38,750. This is my maximum contribution possible. So similar to the last question that we did in throughput accounting, but different because of the fact that there was a special instruction given that these many units of the product will have to be sold regardless. Okay, so have a look at this. This will tend to be an important question later. ठीक है, चलो. Uh, let's once now that we have gotten an understanding of this, let's develop this further, and this knowledge that we have acquired right now, we are going to apply that in a situation where there are multiple limiting factors. That machine time is also limited, or labor hours are also limited, material availability is also limited. Now, the approach that we had taken so far said contribution divided by labor hours, if labor hour is the limiting factor, contribution divided by machine hours to get contribution per machine hour. But when there are multiple limiting factors, you don't know now what to use in the denominator. So in that case, we'll need a different approach to understanding how this part works. Okay, so let's focus on that next.